Dunkin' has developed some loyal fans over the years. They come back not only for the great products, but also because of the great guest service that you provide. Let's get started and take a closer look at the excellent guest service. It all starts with you. Providing an outstanding guest experience is at the core of what you do. That means serving great coffee and donuts, fast, made right, with a smile, in a clean and safe environment. You welcome guests with a warm welcome and a smile, and you are genuinely thankful for their business. It goes without saying that you treat every guest with respect, but that respect extends throughout the entire restaurant. The way you work together with the restaurant team is important. It takes the whole team to deliver an excellent restaurant experience. You count on your teammates to fulfill orders. The cashier at the register taking the order, the team member making coffee, and the sandwich assembler building a bacon, egg, and cheese bagel. Remember, America runs on Dunkin', and Dunkin' runs on you. The first step is to greet the guest. Make sure you make eye contact and that you greet the guest as soon as they enter. Guests always come first over other priorities. If you are in the middle of a task, be sure to tell the guest, "I'll be right with you." Wash your hands and then assist the guest. You want to focus on hospitality and treat the guest as if they are a guest in your own home. When working at the drive-thru, answer the guest as soon as you hear them pull up to the speaker. When greeting the guest, let them hear the smile shine through your voice. The second step is to take the guest's order. Your number one objective is to make sure you get the order right, so you want to make sure you listen to exactly what the guest orders. Ringing in the details will go a long way to making sure the guest order is made accurately. Do not interrupt the guest. During this step is also the opportunity for you to show your knowledge and smart sell to the guest. This means to make a recommendation that complements the guest's order. Did your guest order an iced coffee and a breakfast sandwich? You may want to smart sell an order of hash browns to go along. Once you have the guest's order, repeat back the order so the guest can confirm their order. You'll provide a total at the end. When a guest is ordering at the drive-thru, ring in the order as it is given and make sure you don't interrupt the guest. Once they are finished ordering, be sure to provide them with their total at the speaker. The third step in the process is to collect payment. After giving your guest the total, they could present you with either cash, a Dunkin' card, a credit card, or the Dunkin' mobile app. If the guest presents cash, you'll count back the change and hand the guest their change and their receipt. If they present a Dunkin' card, you'll swipe their card and let them know that the balance of their card can be found on the bottom of their receipt. Remember to return the Dunkin' card back to the guest, regardless of the balance. Some guests set up their Dunkin' card to automatically recharge, so it's important to always return it. If they pay for their order with a credit card, you will swipe the card for payment and then also provide the guest with their receipt along with their credit card. If the guest pays for their purchase with their mobile phone via the mobile payment method, scan the guest's virtual DD card while they hold their phone. Do not touch the guest's phone during this process. Regardless of their payment method, always make sure you are providing the guest with their receipt and order number and direct them to the appropriate pickup area as applicable. Next step is to prepare the order. Here's where you utilize teamwork and strive for order perfection. Remember exactly how your guest placed their order and communicate with your fellow crew members to make sure it's made correctly. We are almost to the end, but these last steps are just as important. Step number 5 is to deliver the order to the guest. Make sure you repeat the order back to the guest, make eye contact with them, and smile, of course. Last but not least, thank the guest and invite them back. Say thank you and really mean it. Your guests have so many choices these days. Let them know you appreciate their business and you hope to see them again tomorrow. Now that you've heard all about the 6 steps of guest service, let's watch a video of all these pieces coming together to create a great experience.
Hi, how may I help you?
Yes, can I get 2 sausage, egg, and cheese croissants?
Okay.
A medium caramel swirl latte?
Latte.
And a medium coffee extra extra.
So that's 2 sausage, egg, and cheese croissants, a medium caramel swirl latte, and a medium coffee extra extra.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so that's going to be $10.71.
Medium extra extra.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
All right, sir. There's your receipt. Your order number is 263, and you can pick it up at the pickup area right down there. Thanks. Have a great day. Hello.
Hi, how are ya?
Good. How are you?
Guests with disabilities deserve the same great service and hospitality that all our guests receive. Under U.S. law, a disability is defined as any physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. A record of such impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. The law in other jurisdictions might vary, but great guest service and hospitality is applicable everywhere. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans have disabilities, and almost half of all people over 65 have a disability. Knowing how to provide great service to guests with disabilities is an important and essential skill. In 1990, the United States Congress signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, into law. This law provides that, among other things, individuals with disabilities have the right to expect the same opportunities and services that are available to all people. It is against the law to discriminate against anyone simply because they have a disability or are perceived to have a disability. The ADA also states that all places of public accommodation, such as Dunkin' Donuts restaurants, are required to be readily accessible and usable by people with disabilities. This means that you and others working in public places should be properly trained regarding the requirements of the law. Your franchisee, in accordance with federal and state laws, may have provided a number of accommodations to make guests with disabilities feel more comfortable in your restaurant. These may include ramps, electronic door openers, lower service counter areas, wheelchair-accessible tables. It's a good idea to ask your manager what types of accommodations you have in your restaurant so you are familiar. Now that you have some information about the law and some different types of accommodations, let's go through a few tips for giving guests with disabilities great guest service. Tip number 1. While you can offer a guest with disabilities some extra assistance, don't insist or assume they need help. Tip number 2. Never ask about a guest's disability or refer to them by it. Tip number 3. For a guest in a wheelchair, you may offer to serve beverages in a carrier tray to make it easier for the guest to manage. Tip number 4. For a visually impaired guest, you may politely tell them information that another guest could see. For example, explaining where the front counter is located, describing a product, or counting back change thoughtfully. Tip number 5. For a hearing impaired guest, you may have a pen and paper at the cashier station to communicate. Also, you can utilize the register's display screen to point out items that you have entered. It is not necessary to speak loudly or shout at the guest, but rather make eye contact and speak clearly. Tip number 6. Remember that guests with disabilities must be allowed to bring their service animals into the restaurant and into any area that a guest can typically enter. Service animals are typically dogs, but may even be miniature horses. We've spent a lot of time throughout this course discussing how to make the guest experience in your restaurant fantastic. Putting the guest at the center of all you do, combined with the 6 steps of service, helps to minimize the chance that guests will be unsatisfied. However, sometimes things happen, and for whatever reason, guests' expectations are not met. If this occurs, we hope that guests will let us know and give us the opportunity to make it right. After all, turning a poor experience into a great one can turn a dissatisfied guest into a lifelong fan. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. To turn around a dissatisfied guest, we like to use what we call the LAST method. These are 4 simple steps that are very impactful in making a difference. LAST stands for Listen, Apologize, Solve, and Thank. Click on each image below to learn more about each step. Listen. Really take the time to listen to your guest. Give them your undivided attention. Make eye contact and show sincere concern. Using active listening techniques by asking a clarifying question or repeating back what the guest is telling you. For example, you could say, "So to make sure I understand, you saw the crew member hand your sandwich to another guest?" Apologize. Let your guest know you are sorry that their expectations weren't met. Be careful not to imply guilt in the apology. For example, say, "I'm sorry you're not feeling well," rather than, "I'm sorry our food made you sick." Also, do not make an excuse part of the apology or argue with the guest. Making excuses or arguing will not help the situation. Solve. Find a way to make the situation right. For example, you could offer to replace the item or offer a free beverage or food item with the replacement. Turn a mistake into a lasting impression with the guest. While you can solve many situations on your own, know when to refer the guest to your manager. For example, in cases where there is a foreign object in a product, an alleged product contamination, complaints of an illness from a product, or a verbally abusive guest, your manager or franchisee may need to be contacted. Thank. This is probably the step that is most forgotten, but the guest gave you the opportunity to correct the situation, and for that you should be thankful. Being given the opportunity to make things right through a satisfactory resolution helps to build lasting relationships with guests. You could say something like, "I really appreciate you giving me the chance to fix this problem." In today's market, guests have so many options to choose from when it comes to their coffee, breakfast, or afternoon snack. With so many choices, guests have to be persuaded to keep coming back to Dunkin'. Just like you, guests want to go where they know they'll receive quick, friendly service, quality product, and accurate orders served in a clean restaurant. Guests are not just expecting the great, friendly service at the Dunkin' they visit every day. They are expecting the same great service no matter which Dunkin' they are visiting. That's why even though guest expectations are always evolving, great service must always stay at the forefront of every customer visit to every Dunkin'. Let's look at guest expectations and how it impacts their satisfaction. At a minimum, guests expect a clean restaurant, quick and friendly service, quality product, and an accurate order to be satisfied with their experience. To improve the experience even more and turn a satisfied guest into a highly satisfied guest, they expect employees to foster a relationship with them by recognizing regulars and initiating conversation. They also want to see that employees are focused on guests' needs and quickly respond to issues. A highly satisfied guest wants to see happy, positive employees. Remember, employees can have a big impact not just on the visit experience, but on the guest's whole day. You're often the first person they see in the morning, or you may be the only smiling face they will see all day. Let's be honest, even when striving for the best guest experience, sometimes mistakes or misunderstandings can happen. When they do, how you recover from the issue says a lot about your restaurant and the service you provide.
Thank you. This isn't what I ordered. Doesn't taste right.
Have you ever received the wrong order at a restaurant? think of how the employee handled the issue and how it made you feel. If they told you that it was your fault because you placed the order incorrectly, would you feel satisfied with the service? What if they apologized, then took steps to understand and resolve the issue? I bet how they handled the situation impacted how you felt about the restaurant. You've heard it before, but following the last guest recovery model can not only help de-escalate a frustrating guest experience, but can also help strengthen the guest relationship. Guests who experience great guest recovery after an issue can sometimes become even more loyal than guests who never had an issue to begin with. By practicing great guest recovery, you are showing guests how much you value them and their satisfaction and want them to return. Check with your franchisee or restaurant manager for ideas on how to solve issues that may arise in your restaurant. Now, let's talk about guest feedback. Do you know that 96% of unhappy guests who are not satisfied with their visit don't even complain? However, even if the guest isn't willing to notify you of a complaint, they'll still be likely to tell people about their experience. At one time, unsatisfied guests would tell 9 to 12 people about their experience. But now, with the help of social media, guests can share their experience with the world and even have it go viral. So if only a small percentage of unsatisfied guests complain, how can we collect feedback on how the brand and your restaurant are doing? Dunkin' is committed to hearing what guests are saying because it is a major factor in knowing what is going well and what needs to be improved. When guests are willing to share positive and negative experiences, it is important that we're listening. Having insight into guest feedback allows us to celebrate all of the positive experiences and find a way to turn the negative experience around to create a loyal guest via a best-in-class guest experience. There are 4 ways that Dunkin' or its franchisees can hear from guests. Let's look at each one. The first way guest feedback is gathered is through you and your interaction with guests. You may be able to tell based on a guest's body language that they are getting impatient or annoyed. Guests may also speak directly with a franchisee, manager, or team member about their experience. You are receiving feedback live and in person. Whether a compliment or a complaint, this is a perfect opportunity to let the guests know how much you appreciate their feedback and solve their problem immediately. Let's see what some guests shared when speaking about their local restaurant. The guest satisfaction survey prints out at the bottom of every receipt, which is handed to the guest as part of the 6 steps of guest service. Through the survey, Dunkin' restaurants receive feedback on approximately 2 million guest experiences annually. Feedback through the survey is extremely valuable as it not only lets franchisees view their restaurant-level information, but restaurant managers can access it as well and to share the information with their crew. The more surveys that are completed, the more information the franchisee and the restaurant manager can learn from and share with their crew. Guest support receives about 360,000 contacts a year from guests through email and phone. Guests can contact Guest Support Group for anything, from questions regarding products and promotions to sharing their service experiences. The Guest Support Group always tries to identify the restaurant a guest visited so a franchisee can know about praise for their employees and restaurant or provide them the opportunity to follow up with unsatisfied guests. The final way Dunkin' hears from guests is through social media. Social media has drastically changed how we communicate with guests. Guests can now not only share their experiences with their friends and family, but also to acquaintances or people they may not even know. It has opened up a different way for Dunkin' to communicate with guests. Everyone in the restaurant can impact a guest's experience. By following the 6 steps for guest service, you can help create a positive experience and help increase guest satisfaction. Speed of service is a priority, but eye contact, smile, and a friendly demeanor go a long way and doesn't take any extra time. The following are some recommended ways to help increase guest satisfaction. Being friendly. Do you remember the last time you went to a business and received service that was just okay? We've all had a time when a good experience has turned into a great one thanks to a smile and a warm, authentic greeting. You can do the same for every one of your customers. Engaging your guests. Ask them how they are doing or notice the regulars that come in your restaurant. Hand the guest their receipt, pointing out their Dunkin' Donuts card total, perks balance, and guest satisfaction survey. Keep tabs on the overall restaurant environment. Maintaining restaurant cleanliness is a useful way to impact the guest's overall experience and can help set the tone of the visit as a guest first steps into the restaurant. Following required standards and procedures. Procedures and standards are created for a reason, to help ensure guests are receiving quick, friendly service, accurate orders, and quality product. Everyone in the restaurant can help guest service, so your attitude and attention to detail and cleanliness have a big impact on the guest experience and relationship. Thank you for all you do to provide a great experience guests will want to share with their friends and family.